Georgia is entering the 2025 season with a much more inexperienced team than in years past. The Bulldogs have the least amount of players who have gone through 3 springs with the program in Kirby Smart's whole tenure. And even when you put that specific stat aside, it's just a much younger team overall. Georgia was of course active in the transfer portal and signed a high-ranking high school class, but it would really help their defense to have some players who've already been around take a leap in 2025. In this video, we will look at 4 returning Georgia defenders who have a chance to break out in 2025. Before we start, I want to say that more established players like CJ Allen or Christian Miller or Dalen Everett or even KJ Bolden will not be on the list. Those guys were all preseason, all SEC selections this year, so we know how good they are. This list is more for players who have been on the team but haven't really played as much and have a chance to take a leap forward this year. So yeah, we can start now. We begin our list with junior edge rusher Gabe Harris. Now, while Harris did appear in all 14 games last season, it was largely in a reserve role, as he took a backseat to, of course, Michael Williams and Jalen Walker, but also Chaz Chambliss and Damon Wilson. Georgia had a lot of depth on the edge last season, so they could afford to rotate a bunch of different guys in and out as they love to do. Fast forward one offseason, and basically all of that depth is gone. Williams and Walker went to the NFL draft, Chambliss ran out of eligibility, and the other 2 edge rushers from the same 2023 signing class as Harris, Sam Mpemba and the aforementioned Damon Wilson, both transferred. So, Georgia basically went from an embarrassment of riches at the position to being quite thin by comparison. Which is why it's so important for them to get a big year out of Harris. And he's shown a bit of production so far. In his rotational role last year, he recorded 14 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. The Bulldogs also went out and got Elo Madozie as a late portal addition, and have sophomore Quintavious Johnson coming back alongside 3 true freshmen. But the oldest player in that room is now Harris, and he has the perfect opportunity to show what made him a top 100 level recruit on some sites coming out of high school. He even got a jersey number upgrade, going from 29 to the decidedly cooler 0. Georgia doesn't demand tons of individual production from its edge rushers, and no one's going to ask him to have 10 or 15 sacks, but if he can set the edge consistently and be a good run defender, it would really raise the floor for this defense. If he can't, then Georgia's potentially dealing with a serious pass rush problem, so they need this guy to be good. Sticking to the front 7 with our next choice on the list, we have junior defensive lineman Jordan Hall. Jordan Hall, aka Big Baby, is playing at another position where Georgia's losing a lot of production. Nazir Stackhouse, Warren Brinson, and Tyrion Ingram Dawkins are all off to the NFL. Hall was a 5-star recruit in Georgia's 2023 recruiting class, but has had a hard time living up to that billing so far. In 16 career games played, he has 14 tackles and 0 tackles for loss. Now, of course, it hasn't been a lack of talent keeping him off the field. Jordan Hall has had pretty insanely terrible injury luck during his time as a Bulldog. He was battling through a stress fracture in his leg throughout last fall, and then suffered the same injury in his other leg, which ultimately delayed his debut until November in Georgia's road loss to Ole Miss. Hall then played the final 6 games of the season for Georgia, but he was never really fully healthy. But it's been reported that Hall is getting closer to 100%, and now he has the chance to make an impact on Georgia's defensive line. Hall will join Christian Miller in the middle, along with redshirt sophomore Xavier McLeod and number 1 high school defensive lineman Elijah Griffin, although he will be a true freshman. Don't expect him to be insane year 1, please, although he might be. The Bulldogs were uncharacteristically mediocre stopping the run last year and gave up the 6th most rushing yards in the SEC. If the Bulldogs can get a productive year out of Hall, it would be a huge boost to a defensive line that has a clear alpha dog in Miller, but is in need of someone else to step up alongside him. Health permitting, that could easily be Hall. It's been a rough start to his college career with all the injuries he's had to endure, but now is as good a time as ever for him to get things back on track. Number 3 on the list is linebacker Chris Cole, the youngest player of the group. Cole arrived at Georgia last season as a 5-star recruit and number 3 linebacker in the country, but wasn't even the highest rated linebacker recruit in Georgia's class, that of course being number 1 linebacker Justin Williams. But Cole gets the nod on this list because of what he flashed in 2024. Cole appeared in all 14 games for Georgia last year, and though he was never a starter, he ended up being pretty important to the defense once veteran Smile London Jr. went down with an injury. As a freshman, Cole made some eye-popping plays and recorded 16 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a pass deflection, and 2 fumble recoveries. The defining trait for Cole is his versatility, which has already drawn comparisons to former teammate Jalen Walker for his abilities to defend the run, rush the passer, and drop into coverage. He began his high school career as a defensive back before moving to linebacker, and you could definitely tell he had some coverage experience when he entered the game against Texas last year. And while there are differences in their games, like how Cole has a bit more length than Walker and is better in man coverage while Walker is stronger and more of a zone defender, it's hard to not see where the comparisons are coming from. Nobody should be expecting Jalen Walker level responsibilities or production from Chris Cole in just his sophomore year. Remember, Jalen Walker wasn't even a full-time starter until he was a junior. But Cole is undeniably ahead of schedule, and the things Georgia asked him to do last year as just a freshman are proof enough of that. Georgia has two established players at linebacker in C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson, but Cole seems like an obvious candidate for more snaps in 2025 with London and Walker gone. His versatility makes him a pretty unique player, and it'll be cool to see what Glenn Schumann does with such a chess piece on the field. They might not turn him completely loose like what they did with Walker last year, but it's hard not to see Chris Cole having a big role in this defense in some capacity. The final player on our list is senior defensive back Ja'Cory Thomas, who has found himself in a battle all spring and summer long for Georgia's starting safety job. The Bulldogs, of course, sent both Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson off to the NFL, and with them goes a whole lot of experience and leadership on the back end of the defense. Now, luckily for Georgia, they have an All-American hopeful in KJ Bolden set to take over one of those safety spots, but who the other starting safety will be is a bit more unclear. The Bulldogs went open season in the transfer portal and got 3 safeties, Zion Branch from USC, Jaden Harris from Miami, and Adrian Maddox from UAB. They also brought in 3 4-star freshmen in Todd Robinson, Rashawn Dinkins, and Jalen Morgan. But in a position that Kirby Smart seems to highly value experience in, you have to think Thomas has a leg up on the others in that area. He started 3 games last year against Clemson, Florida, and UMass when Georgia was dealing with injuries, and played pretty well with a lot of physicality and some nice plays in coverage. While he's not the freak athlete that Starks is, who is, Thomas has been a good player when given the opportunity, and could definitely emerge as a veteran in the safety room the same way that Dan Jackson did last year. It's just not a position that Smart loves to get too young in unless he has like a phenom young guy like Starks in 2022, or even KJ Bolden last year. Georgia is likely to rotate its safeties quite a bit early in the season as it figures things out, but don't be surprised to see Thomas eventually emerge as a starter. He can also play star if needed and could see some snaps there. There's a real chance that Ja'Cory Thomas quietly becomes one of the most important players on Georgia's defense next year. And those are 4 returning Georgia Bulldogs defenders who can make a big impact in 2025. Please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to Georgia at the Voice of College Football. My name is Bo. You can follow me on Twitter. We do a live show every week, usually on Mondays around 7 p.m. I think sometimes that'll have to change, but usually Mondays at 7 p.m. And we would love to have you, yes you, along with us for the 2025 season. So, please consider sticking around with us if you love the Dogs, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.